thank you. Okay, so you are going to do a much better job of this than I am. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also just Embark as a whole for those who may not know what it is.
Yeah. So about me, I love the tech community. I'm a tech entrepreneur at heart. I was circulating a lot in in these groups, DevTO, TechTO. I hung out at the DMZ. Anyone from the DMZ around here? Yeah, cool. Yeah, great place. I got to reconnect with those guys. But kind of like in-person stopped after COVID, so it wasn't as productive doing it over Zoom, and I got Zoom fatigue too, right? So it wasn't as good. But anyway, I'm an entrepreneur. I love technology, and I might be the old guy in the room now because I'm old, and I've done a lot of tech companies. And a lot of disruptive things, and I'd love to tell you about it. But my latest adventure is at Embark, and Embark is an education savings company, essentially, but have you guys heard of RESPs, Registered Education Savings Plan? Most of you had your hands down for that. You didn't know. So that is, my whole career, I spent my whole career building tech to educate people and bring financial services to be accessible for everyone. And RESPs is one of them that doesn't feel very accessible at the moment. So less than half of eligible Canadians know that they can contribute, and they don't even know that you can get free money, right? Because the government, up to $2,500 a year, will add another 20% to your savings for nothing. So it's free money. And if you start like when your kids are born and you get to 18, like that's a lot of time to be invested, and you potentially have the money to go to university, college, trade school, whatever, afterwards. Right now, students are most anxious about the debt that they're carrying, to the point that they would quit school. I can't handle it. I'm too stressed out over worrying about money. I eat too much instant noodles, whatever, right? So then, they're stressed about it. They want to quit, and that's actually not good for Canada. We need more, skilled folks. We need more entrepreneurs. Small business drives our economy, essentially, and so, education is a big part of it. I was University of Waterloo. I have a systems design engineering degree that made all the difference in the world in everything I'm doing right now. Even though I don't do anything like engineering, but right now, so I'm leading companies. But I did software engineer to start. Yeah.
So I think that was a great intro, and I think we're going to touch on everything you sort of mentioned just to kick it off. But I want to go back to just early years. You mentioned you've got lots of entrepreneur experience. You are a seasoned entrepreneur. So the early entrepreneurship days, is there anything that you could highlight that you've really taken with you into today that has helped you sort of become the founder and helped you on your journey to right now?
Yeah, I would say, persistence. I learned a lot of. My first business I started was in the real estate industry. So, real estate was really inefficient. People were using typewriters and they didn't have computers, right? That's how old I am. So I created something that will let them, do all the offer and the legal documents on a computer. And it's still, the same tech is still around today. Other companies I work with in that exact space are doing it all across North America and the world. So that was one disruptive thing I did. But the hardest thing I had to do was live on nothing for about 8 years, like zero. I lived under my desk at the office. I killed cockroaches with Windex, and it was tough. But knowing that you're inspired to, do good to an industry, make it more professional or more efficient, or giving accessibility to the customers was really what was my motivating factor. And knowing that there will be I hope there was an eventual exit at the time, was really the thing I pushed for. I wasn't worried about when I met a lot of CEOs who were always worried about the exit. I was never worried about the exit. I was worried about building a great business that lasted, right? As a consequence, I've actually exited probably 4, maybe 5 or 6 times. But I never focused on the exit. I just focused on building an amazing business that made money, that had great purpose. And that's what I learned. And the other thing, too, that was important and I took for granted in the early years was building relationships. Yeah. I was more a tech guy, so I was more the CTO part of the co-founder equation. And so as the CTO, I just hide in the closet and write code. But I learned to build relationships outside of that world, and that's That's what's made me the CEO that I am today, is the fact that I could build relationships, bridge relationships, foster relationships, connect and network. So all the things Jason's been doing here in a very charismatic way that we'll never be able to one up at all is very important. You know, the hashtag, the QR codes, that's all teaching you to build relationships, because that can get you a lot further than just burying your head in the sand and writing some software.
And you mentioned before there's an inspiration around just like access, education, helping with debt. Is there another reason why you're just so passionate about building fintech specifically?
Yeah, so I think the big problem with fintech or the financial services is really how complicated it is. And that's what companies like Simple and tons of other ones are trying to make that right, create a better experience. And I think that's the right thing. My second company was a company called Philogics. Anyone heard of that? If you're in financial services, you'd want to connect to that platform, right? And so, we did the hard work of connecting one platform to every lender and every bank that did mortgages in Canada. And the consequence of that was that if you went to a mortgage broker, they can actually shop all the banks for the best product, right? And so that's one way of giving accessibility. And I believe, like, no one ever talks about this, that because we have really good fintech for mortgages, which is one platform that works for everyone, we were actually able to avoid the US mess in 2008, because it regulated all of the appraisals, and it enforced the rules and the regulatory governance around lending mortgages to avoid mortgage fraud, appraisal fraud. It made sure, like, if you needed the mortgage insurance part, you would get it and all that stuff. So all the business rules were reinforced in this platform, and it still runs half of Canada's mortgages. Half of Canada's mortgages still run. I think I built that in 2003 or 4. It still runs today. It's probably now called legacy software, but that's another story where we connect more people to financial services and make it more accessible.
Right, and so just now onto just Embark and what you're doing. So if you could speak to and like walk us through maybe the digital platform, and also how you're staying competitive and how it's just unique.
Is this better? This one's
Might
louder.
be a better mic.
You're an AV tech too. Excellent. So what is RESP, and why is that unique, and what's not digitized today? So unfortunately, RESPs have been sold by salespeople. If you that were not digital, but they were in your community, they would knock on your doors and said you should get your kids savings and so on, and there was really no digital platform. The problem with that is, and the reason why only half of Canadians have it, is because it's really not known. And so what we want to do with this platform is build lots of content around it. In fact, you can go to our site and you can even figure out, if you just had your kids, how much it's going to cost to go to university in 2040. College, university, whatever it is, I'm going to be in province, out of province. It will predict, we use StatsCan data to predict how much it would cost, and then we could work backwards to a monthly savings plan, from now until you withdraw. So then your kids would have no stress about money because it's going to be paid for. Like, that's totally possible. And so we want to make that awareness happen. And so we're going to do that with a digital platform that you could sign up, on board, connect your bank account, add your contributions. You can subtract contributions, like the months you decide I can't afford to do it right now, you can subtract it. And there's no commitment, right, other than to take our advice to save for your kids' education. And we're not charging any upfront fees either, right? So it's a standard, like if you were to invest in a mutual fund, the fees that come off that. But if we get you the 20% government grants, the fees are paid for. Like, it's minuscule compared to the grants that we can get. And so we have a back end that does that automatically. So usually if you go to a bank and said, hey, can you give me an RESP? The advisor might hum and haw because I don't know the products, or I don't know what to put it in, or I don't know how to tell you got your grants, right? That's important. So we have all of that on our platform, and you could, you can sign up and look in real time when you got your grants. You'll get a notification when you get your grants, and so we want to build this in a lot of content. And so if you see me more out in the news talking about this, it's because no one's talked about it in the past, and there is actually something like the total addressable market left for RESPs is the 70 billion mark, right, of people that could contribute money for their kids' education, and then they get government contribution. So that's what we're trying to do.
And what has the experience been like building Embark and also building a team that supports, the vision and the mission of what you're trying to do?
Yeah. So Embark is actually not a startup, but it's almost like a startup as of right now. The benefit of not being a startup is that it's got 58 years of intellectual property and knowledge to run this. It also has revenue and capital, so we're not actually, we're screwed, we have no money. We don't have that, so that's good. But it's a startup in that it's a new brand, it's a new tech, and it's a company that has not traditionally been an innovator in the space. And transforming it, has been difficult. And there's a cultural change that's involved in transforming it. People need to. There's a bit of a different structure, and that's one of the things that I'm good at is to bring innovation and organizational structure to be aligned and move forward to deliver great products. And that's really important in a more mature organization. And when that doesn't happen, then you got people building stuff all over the place and not making sense or not working between teams. But in a fintech, the difference between the old RESP business and now in that fintech is that everybody in the company needs to work together, right? So in an old business, marketing didn't care about sales, didn't care about finance or the tech folks. But in a fintech that's going to try to deliver something great to the customer and build awareness, they're all connected, right? There is actually no such thing as, a specific job. Everyone is a bit of a jack of all trades, without the chaos, and that's how you kind of deliver a great technology with an experience.
And just from where you sit now, looking ahead, what do the next 12 to even 24 months look like for Embark? Or is there anything that you're maybe hoping to complete or launch or kind of bring to life that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we discovered at Embark that saving is not the only problem for parents and students. In fact, a bigger problem, if they got the savings nailed and they started when they're young, the bigger problem as they approach post-secondary school is, what course am I going to take? What program do I get in? What university? What scholarships are available, right? How do I get my first credit card? I'm going to drive. Do I use my mom's car insurance or I get my own? What's that? So there's a ton of, and actually, between all of our customers in RESPs, we have about 600,000 who are parents and subscribing, and then we have another 500,000 who are students. So that's 1.2 million people that we can help. And so we want to build a marketplace. That's kind of my background, building kind of marketplaces, mortgages, insurance, or whatever, to add other services for parents and kids. So kids, finding scholarships and grants. Maybe it's tutoring services. Parents is life insurance, right? Potentially like wills. So if you started investing in your kids' post-secondary education, you should have a will, right? In case. So all of those other things we want to start, offering these kind of services and bring on our platform. We have 1.2 million potential customers that we could offer value to. And so that's what we look forward to doing. So we want to help more kids. Our objective is to get 1 million kids to school. Right?
This is amazing. Last couple questions, so we want to open it up to the audience for some questions as well. There's a lot of, I'm sure, aspiring founders, entrepreneurs, people who might have great ideas in the crowd that want to launch a business, have an idea, not sure how to get started. Do you have any advice that you can share for us about maybe how to get started or when the right time is to kind of launch that?
Yeah, so you heard me talk a lot about structure and process. And I think in any company that's super important, whether it's one or two, right, in a startup or a scale up more like Embark is, structure is key. So I always recommend a very simple framework that I've used. It's called the Pragmatic Marketing Framework. Anyone's used that or heard of it? No? Pragmaticmarketing.com. So I know those guys are a bunch of consultants, but on one of their pages, they have a box of grids that show you how to think about your business in all aspects. So it will start with strategic. So why are you going to win? Who are your customers? What challenges you're going to solve? It goes all the way to the other end, which is tactical, and it will say, find how are you going to support your service? How are you going to communicate to your customers? How are you going to sell them? So it goes from strategy to tactics. And I always ask people to take the framework as pragmaticmarketing.com. So it's just a tool that I use. If you take that framework and make one PowerPoint slide for each to explain, that is your business, right? So if you're trying to start something, you're not really a business, you're a product. You're a product, and there's a product management framework. It's super easy, and I've actually done this at the DMZ, had a seminar on it. So like, if you're trying to think about whether your business is gonna make money or successful, or like how you wanna articulate your pitch, if you take this and have one slide for each, and it ends up being like 30 slides, so not a ton of work, but it goes from, again, how are you gonna win, why are you here, all the way to like, should I buy the tech, build the tech, what people do I need, all the way to like, how am I gonna support my tech, or how am I gonna sell it, what channels and all that. So it makes you think about everything and not forget anything. And so when you come out with that, you'll have a better understanding of what your business would look like. I wish I did that for my first one, but I didn't. But I did that for my second one, and I've done that kind of ever since. Even for a business case, I want to start a new channel, new line of business. I just whip this up to understand all the aspects of the idea and to use it as a guidepost to formulate it and to be more precise about it.
And we will link to it in the newsletter, yes. So if, just last question, if anyone wants to follow up with you, maybe chat with you more, or connect with you at a later date, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn, Andrew Lowe, so that's really the best way. And you can also talk to the 3 people from Embark over here. Yeah, so that might help. But yeah, just reach out. I love linking in with folks and building my network through that. So.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah,
thank you.